Hello survivors and welcome to today's video. So if you've seen our last base tour video, you'll have seen that we incorporated perfect curves into it. So we did say in that video that if anybody was interested, then the Dino Lord would put together a tutorial on how to do these perfect curves and how to incorporate them in buildings of your own. And a few people did say that they would quite like that, so that's what we've got for you today. If you go on to enjoy it, please leave a like and subscribe if you're not already maybe. We've got loads of ARK on here and so much more to come. Without further ado, let's get into this.
So we're going to do a video on how to build curved walls. This is not going to be a video on how to build a perfect circle. There's several different methods that you can use to build a perfect circle. You can do it using this method, but I know there's a couple of others out there which are a little bit cleaner. This method is pretty much how to build curved walls, so you can do more interesting building shapes. But yeah, so this is going to be curved walls in general, whether you want to do a single curved wall as an outskirts, so when you do your dino pens, or you're doing like a castle wall thing, or bridges, but it can be used as well to create the structure of the building, so you can have nice modern shaped buildings. There's a couple ways to do it. You can start it with a foundation, or you can start it with a pillar. I'll show you how to start it with a pillar. You want to make sure your pillar is at the right angle for where you're going to go first. You can see the triangle on the top there faces a certain way depending on where you have your pillar. So even if you turn around, yeah, that triangle will still always point that way. So you want to place your pillar to make sure you know where you're starting. So we get our triangle, and then we do a square on top, and then you want to place your first foundation, the fence post foundation, and make sure it's in the middle of both of these, like that. So you can see it's equal on both sides, it's dead in between the two. And then you want to go to the outside edge and put one that cuts across the square. Now you can pick up the ceiling and it floats there. Once you've got it floating, you add a wall, top and bottom. The reason you add the bottom one is because you can now snap another triangle to it. If you just do the top one, that won't snap because they always want to be snapping on top of a wall, and you can't do just the bottom one. So you do two walls, then snap your triangle there. Now you can pick these up.
You can use anything, not just tech for this.
Yeah, we're only using tech just so it looks a bit cleaner so you can see what's happening. So now what you can see is we've started to gain this slight curve. You do that now, shitloads, and you'll be able to create a curve. So we'll probably speed this up and show you what happens when you get to a point of where it says there are no foundations available. Okay, so here we get to a point now where it says it requires nearby foundation support, and we haven't got any foundations. So what you can do is just drop another pillar from underneath this triangle here. If you do the halfway up first, because the way the triangles work, you can get away without nubbins if you do one halfway up and then one underneath. And then with triangles you don't get a nubbin. So you can do that, which will continue your foundation support. So you're now able to press your square. So I'll carry on, and then when I get to the next one, I'll show you what to do if you don't use the pillars. Okay, so now we've got another point here where we can't place it because of foundation support. So what you can do now is you can do another pillar and keep going round, and then you're getting yourself this nice curve shape. Once you've finished, you'll end up having to fill in the center, which would be your base for how you're going to build your base on top of it. Will all be ceilings meeting in the middle. You'll get this cool pattern as well, but you will run ceilings straight off the front all the way in, which I'll show you later. But if you didn't want that and you wanted foundations, and the reason I think you might want foundations is because they're easier to put things on. Sometimes you get dinos clipping in ceilings and starting to twitch about and all sorts. So you might want foundations to set it up rather than pillars. So what I'll do is I'll just do a bit more of this and then I'll show you the other method where we use foundations instead and how they both work. But you can see how this is starting to curve quite nicely all the way around. You can do it to a full circle. So we'll skip this now and I'll carry on with the pillars and then show you the other method working with foundations. This can apparently work on official as well. We're on an unofficial server at the moment, Mango Nation, and they do have clipping enabled, but apparently this will work on official, and the reason it'll work is because every time you set this method up with a fence post foundation and the triangle, it raises ever so slightly all the way around, which means that the ceilings you add on afterwards will clip into each other. So this should work on official servers. So give it a try, and if it does, let us know in the comments down below, because I am pretty sure it does. So anyway, we've got a quarter of a circle there. That'll do. What you do now, if you're working on the pillar technique, is you run a load of walls around the outside, and that will allow you to then put your square ceilings snap to each of those walls. Keep an eye on your snap points because you do get this weird one here, but you want to make sure it's on the wall itself, like that. So then you've got this nice curve going on, and it looks a nicer curve once you start adding the ceilings to it. So we got this curve. What we want to do then is fill it in for it to become a base. All you want to do is keep adding ceilings all the way along, and you'll end up creating this nice pattern in the middle. When it says you haven't got any more structural support, like there, all you want to do is snap your ceilings. So what I would suggest is, if you have your snap points from your pillars, run a couple, not there, run a couple off those which you've already placed before you start doing your ceilings. I have to remove them. Like this, and you can fill in with some pillars, and then that'll allow you just to run all your ceilings all the way along, and it'll say you should have structural support. See? And you get away then without any nubbins, no pillars showing through, and you can run them all the way along. And if I delete a couple of these, I'll show you what I mean about them raising up and why it should work on official. If you look at how these are being placed, you can see the height difference as it's going through. So each one of these is slightly higher than the last one. So as you keep that method all the way along, you'll see how each one of them goes slightly higher. Now that'll allow it to work on official, but the downside is that when you come all the way back around to the start, you're slightly higher. So I'll show you how I've combated that with some of the builds later on Crystal Isles. But for now, that's how you create a curve, and that's how you fill it in if you were using the pillar technique. So I'll show you now what to do if you're using foundations. So let's say you didn't want to have a ton of ceilings creating this curve, and you didn't want to have a ton of pillars underneath. It's great if you've got a bit of a dodgy landscape and it's a bit bumpy, but it does add to your structure limit an awful lot because you've got tons of these ceilings going around, and by the time you've met in the middle, you really have used a lot of structures. So the other method, using foundations for your structure support, will be a little bit easier on your structure limit and still allow you to have a curved wall on your base. So I'll show you that one in a second. Okay, so this time we're going to do the same thing, but we want to start with a foundation. So like we started with the pillar and the triangle, this time we start with the foundation and a wall. And then on top of that, we place our triangle, and everything else is exactly the same. The exact same method, but instead of starting off a pillar, we start off a foundation. And like I said, you get a really cool pattern with all the ceilings using the other method. And then when they all combine in the middle and you've done a full circle, it looks really nice, which we'll show you on our Crystal Isles base in a minute. Or you might have seen it at the start of the video if we decide to do a scan through of what we're showing at the start. But this method is a lot easier on the structure limit. So we'll speed this up until we get to the point of where we need foundation support. Okay, so we've got to the point now of where we've got no foundation support, and we've started off a foundation. What we do then is just keep linking our foundations across, and we should get foundation support. Yeah, and we can keep going. So I'll carry on now until we get to that half circle again, or quarter circle. Okay, so we've got our curve coming along, and this is just based off the foundations. So again, once we want to create that curve in full, we finish off the bottom here with our walls, just like on the other side, and that'll allow us to put our ceilings on. Again, snap them like we did with the pillar technique. Make sure you've got that snap point that's on the wall, so it creates this nice curve, like that. And we've got this nice curved wall and a nice foundation base to work from. This is a lot easier on your structure limit than if you were to use the other technique, because you can just keep throwing foundations down, and then when you put your walls on the inside, yeah, you could have this nice curved wall with your base in the middle. And obviously you can take these walls as high as you want and then chuck a ceiling on it, but you know that your base and your foundation at the bottom there isn't going to be too demanding on your structure limit. So you can do a nice curved wall of your base using normal foundations. And everyone knows that when you've got a base full of dinos, you start sticking them on top of ceilings and triangles and all of that stuff, they start twitching away and clipping through, and then you're underneath your base and you can see the second layer, all the legs of the dinos popping through. You stick them on foundations like this and everything stays a lot more stable. So it's a nicer place to have with the base of your base like this. But that's what you do, and you can keep that going. You can now turn it into straight sections if you wanted. So you can have like an oval if you wanted to create the curve going into a straight, and then you could do another curve at the end. You could end up doing ovals. You can carry on the same technique we've got and do a perfect circle. It's kind of all up to your imagination on how you use this technique to create what you want to create. But anyway, let's go back to this when I started over here with the pillars. Now, another reason why the pillars would be beneficial is if you weren't wanting to fill it all in. Let's say you were doing a bridge, or you just wanted to do a wall of your castle or a dino pen wall. You can just have it straight on pillars and then do walls coming down on the inside. And then you use the natural terrain like we've got here as your base, and you've just got walls going around the outside. But what I also want to show you is, what if you just didn't want to do an oval or a circle and you wanted to curve this wall and snake it around? How do you make it go the other way? So that's what I'm going to show you now on this one. So we've got our start and we've got our curve coming around this way. What we want to do now is snake it round the other way. Now to snake it round, what we were doing, I'll just pick this one up. So what we were doing is we were having our triangle here like that, and then we were putting a square on and then cutting back across with our foundations. To make it go back the other way, what we need to do is we pop a wall down and then we pop our ceiling on, just like we were doing to come all the way around, but then we want a wall on this side. Once we've got our wall on that side, we want a triangle coming the other way. So we put our ceiling down, and we can actually chuck a triangle on top of a ceiling. Because they've got slightly different snap points, you notice when you're doing triangles and ceilings like this, they always go a little bit higher. So you can actually place that one there now and pick up the ceiling from underneath. And then you're left with a triangle going the other way. All we do then, once we've got foundation support, is we carry on with that same technique we were doing, but the other way. So you just use the same technique that we had on that first section, and we reversed it by using the triangle overlapping the square, and then we can start going in a different direction. Whenever you're trying to put your ceilings down on top, obviously you can't add your walls to this side, the inner part of the circle, because there is no flat edge for you to snap to. So what you've got to do is always snap it to the outer side of these triangles, so you've got that flat edge. Then you can snap your square ceilings to those. Again, make sure you hit that right snap point. Yeah, then once you've placed all your squares to those walls, that'll allow you to place your inner walls onto those squares, like that. So now you can create your curvy walls going any way, however you want. So you can add straights in them, so you can have long sections of straights if you were doing castle walls with curves on either side. You can have curves going whichever way you would like it to go. So that's how you do it based off the pillars. That'll still work on the foundations, but bear in mind you're going to have foundations going quite far to be able to curve the other direction. So I'd recommend, if you were going multiples, to base it off the pillars. It's just far easier.
I wonder if it would work on official, you know, with the walls clipping into each other on this side of it.
I'm unsure. I'd like to know if it does work on official, because of the walls clipping on the inner arches, yeah. But this top technique should work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should be fine. You can build it up from that.
Yeah. So you can build this as high as you want. You can do what you want with it. And like I said, you can fill it in just off pillars and your ceilings combining in the middle, which we'll show you in a second. Creates this cool pattern. Or you can fill it in basing it all off foundations, which, like I said, is a lot less demanding on structure limit and is quite a clean way of doing it. So that's how you build perfect curves. That's how you do curved walls, curved bridges, and how you can create a bit more of an interesting base technique. So what we'll do now is we'll cut over to our Crystal Isles base and show you how I've used all of these ideas to create the structures over there. Okay, so those techniques looked pretty basic when I showed them there, but there's an awful lot you can do with it. This is one of the bases I've used that technique on, and there's a couple of things I want to show you on this one and what's going on. But as a simpler one, here's just a little oval, Yeah, where you've got your curve technique, go into some straights, and then bringing the curve technique back round. And you've got this little oval here. But what I want to show you is, like I said to you, with it raising slightly as it goes all the way around, when you get back to the start, you can see down here, it's slightly higher. So that's why it'll probably work on official, why it should work on official, but it does make it a little bit annoying once you come back around and you finished your circle off. But we just made that just for the TP to go on. So I'll show you now on the big base what you can do with it. So this one, we've got our curve starting and then coming back the other way. And then you can see all the curves going all the way around. And then coming back the other direction again. If I show you inside, this one was built from the foundation technique that I showed you. So you keep following it all the way around, but using square foundations underneath to give it foundation support all the way. So you get these cool shapes on the outside and these nice curves, but underneath you've got this nice, flat, easy foundation, less structure limit, base for it all. So what we've done here, I'll show you on the ceiling, is use that technique again on the inside, as you can see through that glass that goes all the way around. And this was what your perfect circle would look like. Now if you can see, there's a slight discrepancy here where it is higher. See how that's higher than this ceiling? That will happen using this technique with the foundations. And you'll see everywhere where I've got it, you'll end up with this slight height difference. Yeah. But it's alright, I feel, to have that when you're on a ceiling, but when it's on the floor it's a bit annoying. So that's why we use that foundation technique, to make it a bit easier on the inside. So there is a way over here where, because those slight height differences, when you come back round, the two walls are at a slightly different height. You see there's a little bit of weirdness going on here. So what I ended up doing was chucking some pillars in between, so you can kind of mask those height differences, but you can see it right here. So that will happen. You will end up with a slight height difference. So it's up to you how you deal with it, what you create using these techniques. But personally, that's the only downside to doing it, is that slight height difference. But when you get these nice curved walls and these nice interesting shapes for you to build your base off, I feel it's worth it, and just try and mask it with some pillars. So that's how we've done it there. I've got the wavy bridges which go through the pond. Now this is the best and easiest way to use this technique, because you don't care about the height difference when you get to the end, because it doesn't matter, there's nothing to go against. So again, this is just how I showed you before. You go curves one way, curves the other way, you can turn it into straights. And I've also then used that second snap point for the lower section of it to fork it off into two. So you can snake it around and then fork it off into two different bridges, which you can see I've done along here as well. So you just get these really cool wavy bridges. They look amazing. They are a pain in the ass to run around. Trust me, when you're trying to get from one base to another and you don't want to waste the element on a tech suit, you are just...
Sino.
Yeah, I can't use a Sino. But it's a right pain in the ass to run around these bridges, but they look cool. And they look really cool from the top, I think, anyway. So yeah, there's another base we've done over here. Now, this one was all done using, again, you can see the height difference when you come back round. So this one was done using a bit of both, some pillars and some foundations. So when we go inside, we can see we've got these triangle foundations that are giving all of this structural support. But inside here, we have got squares, which are all based on top of pillars. Again, there's your little height difference there. But this one's a good example of showing you, if you use the ceilings, all the cool patterns you can end up with. Because you can end up with this nice circle over here. Well, I think it looks proper cool.
I love that circle.
Yeah, And then we got one last use of this method on this base over here, which has got this cool teardrop shape. Now, like I said to you before, you can run the curve for as long as you want, and then you can go into straights if you wanted to. So that's what I did here. I did just over a semicircle, ran it into straights, all to meet at the end. So we end up with this teardrop shape. Now, this was built on a cliff, and the cliff shape was awful. So this again is showing you how the pillar technique can get you out of trouble if you end up with some land that's got some different height differences. So even from right at the start where the curve starts, yeah, it's just built off the curve on the pillars, just how I showed you with doing those curved walls. And then you snap a load of pillars to your original one, which creates your foundation support going into the middle. And it's doing that all the way along, so you haven't got to worry about your different heights of the land. That's actually built on a really awful cliff. Yeah, then you can come up with these really interesting base designs all using these curves. Like I said, it should work on official, but I'm unsure because we haven't played official for a few months now. I'm unsure about the inner circle wall snapping, whether they'll mesh together or not. But if you are playing official, please try it and let us know in the comments down below if it's worked for you. Anyone playing on an unofficial server will have no problem with this. So anyway, I hope that was useful and given you some inspiration to make some cool new base ideas and designs. So yeah, let us know in the comments down below if you've used it and if it works on official and whether you're having some fun with it.